Hello?
Hey, is this Bryan?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, this is Garrett, if you got a few minutes to chat.
Yeah, thanks. I'm sorry again for the delay there.
Oh, it's all good. Well, I guess just to start, when you look at the landscape of bluegrass these days, what are you seeing?
I see kind of what I've been seeing for about the last sort of half dozen years or so, 5 or 6 years at least, or 8. Maybe we'll just call it 10, which is kind of like basically youth and potential for growth. I think in the wake of people like Chris Thile and the Punch Brothers, you have a lot. Well, let me back up. The wake of Chris Thile and the Punch Brothers, along with organizations like Berklee College of Music and ETSU opening their doors to more bluegrass and folk musicians. You just have this sort of magnetic thing that's happening for a lot of great young players and singers and songwriters and people that are interested in making a living playing bluegrass. And it's exciting. When I was sort of coming up, I felt like I was one of, just a few people that were my age that were involved in bluegrass. There was plenty of us, but not as much as there is now. So it's exciting to see all the youth that's out there, and it's not that they're just young and cute and fancy. I mean, these are really mature musicians that are offering a lot of really great depth as far as the music goes, and the sort of tricky balance of being traditional and also being progressive.
Well, I was going to say, too, to that point, do you see those two camps? Are they clearly defined, or is it just the same argument that happens every generation with where bluegrass is?
Yeah, I mean, the argument unto itself, I think, is something that's always going to be there, just like with lots of other things on this planet, as far as where we are and where we're going. What I see, again, is sort of musical depth and maturity. Good is good to me. And I don't see it as much of an argument as it's only good if it serves these purposes. And so for me, at least, I like some of the traditional stuff. I like some of the more progressive stuff. And I'm drawn to what's good. And I think at the end of the day, people in general are aware of that as well, especially in bluegrass, where there's sort of like you kind of earn your spot in bluegrass. You don't just show up and we're not as commercial as other forms of music where you can have a look and enough money and you can have an impact. Here, you do have to earn it somewhat. Yeah. With your chops and your legitimacy that way. And so that's again what I see as musical maturity, a depth of either singing or writing or playing.
Well, it's one of those things too.
Undeniable.
Well, yeah, it's one of those things too where when people talk about neo-traditional versus progressive, it's like, well, this is the same conversation they had in the early 70s when Old and the Way and Newgrass Revival showed up. And what's funny about that is who are some of the pillars now? Peter Rowan and Sam Bush, Yeah,
I mean, it's again, the argument's not going away. I think it's funny that we still call what Sam Bush did back in the mid-70s Newgrass. It's just it's silly. And
to that point too is I've always said to people too that the original rebel himself was Bill Monroe.
Yeah, it's sort of built into the DNA of bluegrass to have a strong sort of sense of self and sort of try to rise above, I guess. Yeah. And it's tricky when that does create lots of lots of followers and lots of ways of thinking based on that one thing, and then suddenly your priorities are to recreate that thing versus use that energy that got it there in the first place.
Well, not to play not to play devil's advocate, but what would be your I guess core definition of what bluegrass is?
I don't know. To me, bluegrass entails a certain sort of vocabulary. It's not just how you play, but kind of what you play at the same time. There's a certain how you play bluegrass, but for me, it's sort of, when I hear people try it and not get it, it comes down to sort of what they're playing.
Yeah.
And that's an incredibly vague umbrella kind of answer. But ultimately, you know, there's an intent that is bluegrass to me. Not soft. It's hard hitting. It's whether it's a slow song or a fast song or a, you know, cheating song or a love song. There's like a lot of intense emotion involved and meaning. You know, when somebody sings something in bluegrass, they are really, really meaning it. I don't get into the argument of it has to have a banjo played this particular way. You know, it's part of the sweet spot of Western North Carolina is that it's, you know, not about specific camps that do certain things a certain way, but it's just sort of mountain music.
Yeah.
The mountain music kind of umbrella takes care of a lot of things. So I don't know. I find it continually hard to answer that.
Yeah. Well, it's funny
is,
like,
you know, what is Christianity?
Yeah. Well, it's funny you say that. You know, I live in Waynesville, and I run around and write a lot about quote unquote bluegrass music in Western North Carolina. But what's funny to me is everyone I talk to either has a different interpretation of it or are almost offended if you call it bluegrass, because in their words, it's mountain music.
Yeah. Well, again, it comes back to that intensely personal thing, whether it's somebody, you know, listening and enjoying or buying bluegrass or somebody actually playing or singing it.
Yeah.
That intensely personal thing, we have to come to a point where we say it's, you know, it's why we like it. We just sort of know what it is because we know it when it's there and we know when it's not there for us.
Yeah.
Again, I think the more we spend drawing lines between this and that and the other thing, we're chopping something very sort of precious up.
Yeah. Well, I was curious too about your thoughts on the growing pains of the IBMAs when they've vocally stated that they want to blur the fringes a little bit to allow more people to feel welcomed in.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what your thoughts are on that. Because I know some people were a little heated about that, saying, no, those are the lines on purpose. But then for me, it's like, well, I look at the people on the fringe, like Green Sky Bluegrass and the String Dusters as kind of portals to the core, you know?
Yeah. I think that's a healthy way to look at it. If there is sort of a nucleus that sort of is IBMA and that sort of day-to-day bluegrass musician or professional, however that means, and IBMA helps support and kind of galvanize that energy. And then you have these sort of spring points from that nucleus that says, you know, if you live in Colorado and don't necessarily think the same way that somebody in South Carolina does, that, you know, IBMA can at least provide some kind of bridge for at least being aware of each other. You don't have to like each other's music or even agree with each other on lots of issues, but, you know, hopefully the initial energy of saying, you know, bluegrass can be lots of things. It can be lots of different kinds of music and lots of different kinds of people. And I think the effort to try to just recognize that is pretty healthy.
Now, you, coming from Western North Carolina, you come from a very prominent family of fiddle players. How did a guitar end up in your hands and not a fiddle?
Well, as far as what was around my house when I was a kid, it was mainly guitars. My grandfather was the fiddler, and my sister went more that route. And the sort of fiddle, was sort of a big feature, and always has been, in old-time circles and bluegrass circles around Asheville, mountain music circles.
Yeah.
But around my house, it was mainly guitar and some banjo. I had electric guitars and acoustic guitars all over the house, and that was just the natural thing. You know, I picked up a guitar when I was 3 or 4 years old, and then got serious with my dad, taking lessons around 8 years old, and then 10 years old. It was just always there, and I was drawn immediately to guys like Doc Watson, Tony Rice, and Dan Crary, Jack Lawrence, and it seemed to be the right thing to do.
What was it about the guitar, as you've, you know, obviously done very successfully with it, and especially in terms of the IBMA award for Guitar Player of the Year, but
right.
What is it about the guitar that speaks to you? What is it about it that you can do more of what you want to do in your mind compared to perhaps other instruments?
I like the full range of it. I like the option of just playing rhythm and sort of being the sort of the orchestra, you know, trying to cover what a band would do with one instrument. Some of my experiences in the recording studio, when I look back, you know, some of the best memories I have, or the best playing that I feel like I did was when it was just me and a vocalist, and I really got the opportunity to just cover everything.
Yeah.
And I like that. I like the ability of the guitar to kind of be all you need. I really, you know, enjoy playing the leads and stuff like that, but I truly more enjoy playing rhythm and thinking about what a song needs and what a singer needs, and I think the guitar, to me, is sort of the perfect tool for that.